Oh, yeah, I forgot that edition as well. And the kicker with this was he was even relegated, so he didn't even get second place. Really curse of the rainbow jersey that year. But speaking of rainbow jerseys, and also, well, they were pairing up him and this man in Amstel Gold. Tadej Pogacar, obviously two-time champion, won last year quite convincingly, stepping off everyone on La Redoute, as you would say. And yeah, just been a breath of fresh air. I think he's been one of the best world champions I've thought, well, I can think of in recent years, just participating in not just select events, literally going full board. And I think he's going to be probably the only rider doing all the five monuments this year. When's the last time we saw a world champion do that? I think
I,
that's incredible.
I don't know who else. You're right. Yeah, Pogacar is, yeah, he's the favourite of its race easily, although I think there's certainly some question marks after that Amstel Gold race as to just how dominating Pogacar is at the moment. I know that my thinking of just how good he is at the moment, especially after all the racing that he's done this year, it's been a really intense program. It's only natural that even the best rider in the world gets tired eventually after so much racing and, trying to balance the racing and the recovery. So I think it's not an absolute foregone conclusion that Pogacar will just ride away from everyone because he was brought back in Amstel Gold Race after a long range attack. So I'm not confident that Pogacar will attack from far out just because I think Amstel Gold Race will be in the back of his mind, but he might still get brought back. And that it's not just going to be a victory taken for granted. Poggy is, yes, still the favourite, but not as convincingly as we have as we might say in most editions.
What do you think went wrong? Do you think it was, well, you said it as well, like he's done basically a big race every single week. Obviously, he's used to the Tour de France, so his recovery and kind of resistance to fatigue is kind of sky high. I mean, we saw him do the Giro Tour double last year, and he said he felt stronger in the third week of the Tour. So it's also very different terrain, though. So it's not like, well, the Tour is very different terrain, almost stage from stage, but it's still. Maybe he's just coming to the end of this very heavy competitive block and he's starting to run out of matches. I don't know, but he still finished second. So it wasn't like he got dropped after Remco and Skilmos came up there.
Yeah, it was really strange to watch. I mean, obviously this isn't an Amstel Gold Race review, but it was really strange to see that Pogacar, for the first time that I can remember in a while, a one-day race, attacked and got brought back. It's not something you see very frequently, and that is just a bit of a sign to me that something wasn't quite right. And over a race with very similar distance in Liège, I think that, those problems might arise again, but Poggy is also just an insane talent, and if maybe he doesn't attack from that far out. I mean, he followed Alaphilippe, maybe more out of instinct rather than calculation. Maybe he attacks later this time around in Liège. Maybe he goes on La Redoute or, just lets other people do their thing on La Redoute and then he tries to really hit him on Rochefort just to keep it nice and calculated and safe and just save his bullets until as late as possible rather than opening himself up to a potential counter-attack or being brought back. Because obviously the later you attack, the less distance people have to try and bring you back. So you might see a bit more of maybe a less flamboyant Tadej Pogacar on Sunday. It would be my expectation.
Also, because I messed up our recording, we're a day late. So La Flèche Wallonne is happening as well on the day. And obviously, this is just a glorified hill climb. So it hasn't really got any influence on Liege Bastogne Liege. Even though I love the race, I have to be honest about that. So, okay, you said Tadej Pogacar kind of is the favorite, but with like a bit of a question mark. His team currently, Brendan McNulty, Felix Groschartner, Pavel Sivakov, Vicky Staggelangen, Jan Kristin, Dilma Novak, and then obviously Tadej Pogacar. So do you think the team is going to be a big influence in this race?
Yeah, I think it will be, but I think just in the sense that it's going to be really, really strong. It's going to be able to dictate the race how Pogacar wants it to be dictated. We saw them just take an absolute stranglehold of Amstel Gold Race, and I expect them to do something similar here. It's possible they don't take complete control and they try and call other teams bluffs and say, try and force Quick Step to do something, or maybe they try and send a rider up the road and, they're not just like, we're just going to keep riding him and just, dust everyone off on a climb. Maybe everyone expects UE to do that. It's possible they, throw a cat amongst the pigeons and they decide to throw Sivakov up the road on an attack with 70 kilometers to go to force other teams to try and do something to try and weaken them a little bit. I think you might see a little bit more of a canny game from UE Team Emirates, but I think they've got a super strong squad to be able to support Pogacar, and I think they've got the ability to really play the race how they want to play it.
Yeah, I think that's quite a fair assessment, but we might as well move on. It's not a Tadej Pogacar preview. In terms of Remco Evenepoel, obviously he was a big surprise. We had question marks over him for the Amstel Gold preview. But I mean, you never know when a rider's coming back. I think his comeback has been one of the strongest ones I've seen from a rider. Obviously, you could put Jonas Vingegaard in there last year. That was incredible as well. Apprentice Pile winning that, 1-1 with Wout van Aert. And then he was the one who initiated the kind of the callback of Tadej Pogacar. He said he messed the sprint up and would do it differently if it came down to a sprint in Liège. He has a 100% record in Liege Bastogne Liege, by the way, and has won as world champion. What do you think of Remco Evenepoel's chances? And I think, didn't Mathieu van der Poel finish on the podium when he was world champion? So we've had world champions 100% podium record for a few years now.
Realistically, Evenepoel is one of only a few people who could realistically beat Pogacar. I mean, you could be more harsh and say maybe him and only Skelmos, who are based on Amstel, the only ones who could. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment because Evenepoel is, like you said, he's on his way back from injury. So there's still that question mark over him and whether I believe that he's in full form or not. I think that his problem is that he had the time in Amstel Gold Race and the cooperation of Matthias Skelmos Jensen to bring back Pogacar. And I don't think Liège provides that sort of terrain. It seems to be a lot more irregular than Amstel Gold Race, and it lacks those flat sections or flatter sections to, try and bring Poggy back. Therefore, Evenepoel needs to be able to follow Pogacar when he attacks, but he wasn't able to follow Pogacar maybe out of ability or maybe just out of positioning when he went with Alaphilippe. So that's my only question, is that he needs to be able to follow Pogacar. That question might well be answered in La Flèche Wallonne today. So this might be a null and void kind of topic of conversation, but Evenepoel needs to be able to follow Pogacar, pretty plain and simple, because I don't think there's the terrain afterwards for Evenepoel to use his time trialing ability to bring Pogacar back.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Remco is definitely someone who's going to be interesting to follow, and maybe he keeps that 100% record. Who knows? Good team around him. But the team I really want to talk about is Lidl Trek. A few of their riders are actually in the Tour of the Alps right now, but they will be here on Sunday, hopefully.